The unassuming little hamlet of Wiltshire, England, has been, ironically, one of the biggest sources of assumptions in the last 400 years since the discovery of the Stonehenge monuments. The archaic organization of rock is believed to be over 5,000 years old, but little else is conclusively known about who constructed it, why they constructed it, and how. In this article, we'll go over everything we know, including some innovative tech that was used to give Instagrammers a completely new look at the monuments. And stay tuned for a look at one guy who was able to maneuver Stonehenge-sized rocks all by himself. So what exactly is Stonehenge? Talking about the purpose of Stonehenge will likely always involve a bit of conjecture. In the 17th and 18th centuries, shortly after it was discovered, people thought it was a Druid temple used by Celtics as a center for religious worship. After all, it does make sense. A project of this undertaking had to be of vital importance to the people who spent countless generations making it, and there were few things more important to ancient people than religious rites. But with the advent of carbon dating, scientists can now pinpoint the creation of the site to around 3000 BC, give or take a couple of centuries, which is far before there were any Druids wandering the English countryside. A second hypothesis around the time of discovery suspected the stones were used as a celestial calendar, since the entrance directly lines up with the rising sun on the summer solstice. And while that may or may not have been intentional, it's still hard to imagine that the undertaking had the sole purpose of stargazing when they went through such excruciating lengths to have it built, with most of the stones verified as traveling over 15 miles to their final destination. Even though definitive answers elude us, recent discoveries revealed a few more interesting facts. Scientists have uncovered 62 confirmed partially cremated remains that were placed at the site over the course of the last 1,000 years, proving conclusively that the site was, at least in part, a burial ground for the people who built it. But again, although the direct evidence only shows the burial aspect of Stonehenge, we can infer that this was more than that to the people who built it. It's likely that this was a place for rituals and ceremonies, as well as any other number of religious and spiritual practices that were important to them. Okay, so how did they move the rocks all that distance? As mentioned, the biggest stones traveled approximately 15 miles from where they were unearthed and carved before ultimately getting transported to their final resting places. The sandstones, which make out the larger outcropping stones, weigh about 50,000 and 65,000 pounds. So how in the world did Neolithic people transport them? This mystery was a favorite for ancient aliens enthusiasts who took the gap in knowledge and used it for their own fun, claiming there's no earthly way for people of that period to move objects that size, so naturally, unearthly means must have been used. However, most scientists agree that the rocks were moved by a series of sledges made from timber. The prevailing theory may not be as awe-inspiring to some, however, the ingenuity and sheer force of will is something to be marveled at. Another theory, which is just as plausible, if not a little more boring, is that glaciers from the last ice age transported the rocks to their current location, and the people just carved and rearranged what was already there. We've established how the monuments were probably constructed, but who constructed them? This is another mystery that people love to wildly speculate about. In the past 400 years, the builders have been attributed to dozens, if not hundreds, of different people. First it was the Druids, then it was the Danes, the Romans, the Saxons, the Greeks, the Atlanteans, Egyptians, Phoenicians, Celts, King Aurelius Ambrosius, Merlin, and obviously the aliens. In other words, the tracks of the original builders have been so completely lost to history that any group of people with ingenuity who existed around the time may have been responsible, and there likely won't ever be a way to know for certain. However, at this point, a number of scientists are coming to the belief that it wasn't one group of people, but three separate groups who all contributed over the course of 1,500 years. All three were nomadic tribes native to England, but seemed otherwise unconnected to each other. One is called the Windmill Hill people, who were nomads and the ones widely thought to have started the construction. The second group was the Beaker people, who came around approximately 1,000 years after Windmill Hill. This was, again, a nomadic agrarian people who derived their name from their penchant for burying beakers and other cups with their dead. The final tribe being the Wessex people, who lived at the height of the Bronze Age and were a relatively sophisticated and well-organized group of traders who controlled a number of routes in the area. Bones, tools, and other various artifacts that have been unearthed near Stonehenge support the three tribes theory. However, the fact that the partially cremated remains seem to stretch across all three eras of building indicates there was a level of consistency with all the people who created the monument. What's going on with the new tech at Stonehenge? Earlier in the year, National Geographic worked in tandem with a few photographers to bring audiences a depiction of Stonehenge that they've never seen before, starting with Reuben Wu, who stayed at the site overnight with multiple cameras and a drone to shine a new light on the stone. stones. Reuben needed permission from the English Heritage, who controls Stonehenge, and to contact the Royal Air Force every time the drone was launched in order to get the shots he needed, and his patience was rewarded as it resulted in the most striking images of Stonehenge ever created. But these weren't the only bureaucratic hurdles he faced. Wu was forbidden from flying the drones directly over the monuments, so in order to capture the look he had envisioned when he set out to do the project, he needed to carefully use the drone to light every single angle on the monuments over the course of 3 hours, while the camera was taking in the imagery the whole time. He also needed to use the sunset in tandem with his artificial light to help create the ethereal glow in the final image. The project was a success, and one of the final images is headed to the cover of August's issue of National Geographic. Along with Wu's images, Nat Geo also had another photographer taking, in total, around 7,000 images of Stonehenge to compile enough data to create a new augmented reality experience like never before. They released access to the augmented reality experience on their Instagram page. Now Instagrammers all over the world have unprecedented access to the wonders of the site, where they can walk around, take selfies, and witness the lighting in real time, all from the comfort of your own home, or really wherever there's internet. So who exactly is this one-man Stonehenge man? Not to keep dunking on all the ancient aliens enthusiasts, but let's face it, they're basically Danny DeVito standing in front of a 7-foot rim. The ancient aliens theory, as it pertains to Stonehenge, that humans wouldn't be able to move rocks in that manner 5,000 years ago, took on its final death blow when one retired Michigan man documented his experience moving the rocks all by himself. Wally Wallington proved that he could create a Stonehenge using nothing more than wood, counterweights, and gravity when he took a 20-ton slab of concrete and erected it all by himself. During his career as a construction worker, Wallington developed a passion for moving immovable objects and frequently draws a crowd to his property when he tries a new feat. As well as developing methods to move 20-ton slabs, he also moved an entire house 300 feet all by himself. As for his ideas about how Stonehenge rocks were erected, he believes a natural jack system was developed by the tribes, where the use of counterweights to shift the block's balance while stuffing more and more blocks underneath it to gradually lift the rock. Once he was able to erect the slab about 4 feet off the ground, Wallington lowered one side into a pre-dug hole and then used water to allow it to sink naturally in place with its own weight until the rock was perfectly level and upright, all without another hand to help him throughout the entire process. Although these methods may not be exactly how those nomadic tribes built Stonehenge all those centuries ago, Wally's work shows that no task is too big when just the right amount of grit and creativity are present. So what do you think? Do these theories answer enough questions to satisfy you? Or are there still too many unanswered phenomena in your mind to close the book on Atlanteans or ancient aliens just yet? Let us know in the comments where you fall on the list of Stonehenge theories.